everybody. Thank you for that warm welcome. And indeed, thank you to everybody who has made me feel so welcome to Hungary. It's my first time to be here. And from Esther's first interaction and Zoltan and Palgal's invitation to speak to you, I really do feel honoured. So thank you for your presence. And you are all most welcome to MICE Business Day. In a few minutes, I'm going to ask you to shake hands with as many people as possible. But before we do that, let's make it logistically easy for you. So if you can, whoever is accessible to the aisles, if you can walk around and shake hands with as many people as possible, that would be great. And for those of you in the middle, perhaps turn to your neighbour on your left and your right, in front of you and behind you, and shake hands. Just greet the room and say hello for 10 seconds. Everybody comfortable with that? Yeah? Okay, off you go. 1, 2, 3, Congratulations, everybody. Thank you for going with me on that. You have now seriously increased your levels of oxytocin in the bloodstream. And oxytocin is the trust hormone. And trust is the foundation of this beautiful industry. And it's also the foundation of some of the thinking that we're going to be doing today. My name is Ciara Feely. And I work with sales leaders and their teams around the world. And I help them to make mighty moves, as I call them. And mighty is a very strong Irish name, or word rather. And mighty moves in terms of how to really win business and how to win the hearts and the minds of your clients. And this is a picture of my dad and myself. And I still remember him just throwing me up into the air and, of course, catching me every single time. And when we're working with clients, this mighty move is trust. And we need to build really high levels of trust and confidence with our clients or with whoever we work. There's such a big ecosystem in this industry. Because trust is the foundation of a sale or no sale, between how much or how little your next client will spend with you. And even in this age of digitalization, people still do business with people that they know, like, and trust. And when you think about it in this industry, when somebody is considering whether to work with you or not, they're effectively giving you their reputation. Right? A reputation that took years to build. And they're also placing the brand of their organization over the brand of your organization. And brands with a lot of your customers can take hundreds of thousands, if not millions, to build. So a choice of a destination, the choice of a venue, the choice of a service partner takes a lot of trust. And if things go wrong, reputations are damaged and brands are damaged. And that is something that's hard to recover from. So when they're engaging with you, when they're even deciding whether to have a conversation with you, trust is the foundation of that. So we're going to be looking at some techniques in order to really build trust and confidence, those high levels of trust and confidence that are needed. And this industry is built on community. And trust is the foundation of community. And, when you're looking at the ecosystem with all the wonderful partners in this industry, trust and community is really essential to making all of that happen. And I want to share with you some of the techniques that have really helped some of my clients to transform their business. And Brian here, he got business worth 5 million over the line. And what did he do? He changed his conversation and he changed the questions that he was asking his clients. And that's a lot of the work that I do. Justine brought me in. She's a PCO and a DMC in Dubai. And they increased their conversion rates by 7%, which added millions to their bottom line. Eduardo here, he is General Manager of Merits in South America, but also he consults with the Mexican Tourism Board in Los Cabos. And he said that it really is instrumental in terms of the strategic evolution of their destination. Antonio won business worth 220,000. Why? Again, because he started having different conversations with his client. Heather also won 75% of a client's new business. Lilo said thank you for really showing her how to think like a client and sound different and earn client conversations. Tanya had the confidence to open a whole new business in Zimbabwe as a result of the work that she did in changing her approach to her clients. But the biggest skill that I will share with you is really the importance of creating a different conversation. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But the skills, let's look at the skills that is needed in this industry. Listening, empathy, building trust, thought leadership. What are we putting out there to really be a leader in what's happening in this industry? Custom content, very linked to the thought leadership part. Being client-centric. Is every single decision that you're making for your business centered around the client? And what's important to your client and what are they trying to achieve? Personalization. Bringing marketing and sales together. In a lot of businesses in the industry, they work separately, and really for them to work hand in hand and share knowledge and share what they're hearing from their clients and the conversations that they're having with clients. Omnichannel, in terms of the client needs to hear from you in different ways. So not just online, in person, at events like this, through magazines. So lots of different ways to influence. Client profiling. How well do we really know our clients? There's multiple decision makers. Would you agree on this? I think the average in this industry is about 10 different decision makers. We have so many different layers. There's the agency layer, and then there's the actual end client, the corporate buyer. And there could be 3 or 4 different decision makers within that. How are we appealing to all the different decision makers? Because they're thinking in different ways. Human-centric thinking. Right? Personal branding. How are you minding your personal brand? How are you represented? How are you putting your brand, yourself out there in the industry? And of course, presentations being hybrid as well as virtually. And are we really skilled in nailing that? But the biggest one of all is these value creation conversation skills. And I spoke with Kim Myers recently, and Kim is an experienced designer working for himself now, but he used to head up MCI in Europe. And prior to that, he worked for George P. Johnson, who have big clients like Cisco. And he was in and out of the Cisco office all of the time. And he said to me, Ciara, I needed to have a really sharp and quick elevator speech in case they met the CEO of Cisco in the elevator. And in case John Myers said to them, what do you do for Cisco? He wanted to make sure that he had something that was based on the value that he brings to the table. So he did not say, we work in events, or we organize events for Cisco. Why? Because sometimes that can be seen as an expense that can be cut. So instead of talking about events and we organize all these different events, what he said was he spoke about it in terms of the value they bring to Cisco, and he spoke about it in terms of how they're talking about it at board level, the different stakeholders. So he said things like, I create new business opportunities for Cisco. Right? I help find upsell opportunities and building strong customer communities. And why did he say that? Because that is the end goal of a lot of their events. So he's speaking in terms of what the stakeholders are thinking, what they're saying, what is an objective of theirs. And he said, I support the partner networks by creating opportunities to meet Cisco partners, okay? So it's a very different conversation when we're talking about this. So you might say, who am I? Where is this coming from? Well, I've worked in IHG in San Francisco, and then I opened the Omni San Francisco Hotel. When I moved back to Ireland, I founded a venue finding agency, foundaconferencevenue.com, and then from that I could see that when I was being sold to, I could see that the mistakes that were being made. And I knew that I made some of them when I was in hotel sales. And I realized I had been trained to sell from the hotel's point of view. And the client thinks and buys in a very different way. So I wrote a book, and that enabled me then to write different trainings and leadership modules that I share around the world. And when I was writing the book, it gave me immense clarity. And this is what came out of my head, because I had lots of stuff jumbled up. And it gave me the steps to win, as I call it. And this is a roadmap if you want to change revenue, if you want to change how you are communicating with your client, and very importantly, if you want to create a client-centric experience, a buying experience for the client. So rather than looking at it as selling and how you need to sell, it's what is the experience that you are creating for your clients. And step one of this is, how do we stand out? And how do we sound different? Because I'm sure the buyers in the room will agree they're very busy, and you need to earn their time. You need to show that you are going to give value in that conversation. And giving value isn't telling them all about your destination and telling them all about the stats and how many rooms you have and how many people that your conference venue can accommodate. Giving value is really talking about what's important to them and understanding their needs. So how do we stand out and how do we sound different? So I'd like you to clasp your hands together for a minute, okay? Put down your phones and clasp your hands together, okay? Now just observe, is your left thumb over your right thumb or your right thumb over your left thumb? Huh? Yeah, just observe, okay? Separate them. Put them together again real quick. And is the same thumb over the same thumb? Probably, right? Okay. So take them apart. Put them together again, and this time, put your right pinky inside that of your left little finger, okay? Now observe, have your thumbs changed? Mine have, so my right is now over my left. And for most people, that's the way, right? But why did that happen? That happened because we did something different, right? We didn't do what we automatically do. We purposely did something different. And that's what we need to do in order to get a different result, is to be conscious and make a decision to do something different. And I ask you to think about this, in your conversations, in preparing, in trying to earn a conversation, what value can your sales team bring to prospects that they can't figure out by looking at your website, right? They can get a lot of information and a lot of stats on your website. They're not meeting with you in order to hear all of the stats. So how can you really be different? And let this be your North Star. What is the impact that you help your clients to achieve, and what are their goals? And I see some of the wonderful people in the room that I was speaking with yesterday. And Jessica, for example, shared with me She said, Ciara, sometimes destinations and hotels, they just assume that they know what I need. And they automatically take out your photographs and start talking all about whatever it is that you're selling, right? And the client really needs to feel listened to first. And I encourage people and I show people how to develop a natural curiosity, a genuine interest in the client that's going to help you to make a connection. We still very much need to make connections with our clients, okay? Because clients, at the end of the day, they don't necessarily care about your business. They care about their problems. They care about what they need to achieve in order, as a result of your work together, okay? So let me give you this example, which was shared with me by Thomas Weedell, who wrote a book on innovation as usual, okay? And it was about creating innovation in your business. So let's imagine that you were invited to dinner at your boss's house. And your boss loves wine, loves a really good bottle of wine. And you wanted to make sure that you brought the right bottle of wine, the bottle that would impress your boss, okay? Now, if you walk into a lot of spirit stores and wine stores, they look a bit like this, right? Well, at least they do in Ireland. And they might be divided by countries and red and white and, you know, if it's sweet or dry or whatever, okay? And to me, this is confusing, right? And I'm always like, where do I start, right? That sense of confusion, right? Now, if let's look at how the seller is describing the wine. It could be rich and spicy and red and full-bodied and, Hungarian, right? But that isn't necessarily helping me still. And I might be tempted to go by price in order to help me to make a decision. If it's more expensive, it's probably bound to be a fairly good one. But that's not necessarily the best way to make a decision. Now, let's imagine that you walk into the Bottle Rocket, which is a wine store in Upper Manhattan. And they have created a very different way of talking and presenting their wines. And they have a section of wine just for the boss. Right? So immediately you walk over there, right? They're making your life easy. They're helping you to make a decision. And they've narrowed it down to 5 bottles. So much easier. Such more of a pleasant buying experience, right? And if you notice, the quality isn't great, but let me read it. Over here, they have suggestions for the 3rd date. Which I thought was very, very interesting, okay? So let's look at the language. Let's look at the language here, and that's what's important, right? So the seller is saying dry, red, full-bodied, spicy, rich, whatever, okay? Hungarian, right? The buyer is saying, I just want a bottle of wine that's going to impress my boss. So that's 2 very different conversations that are being had. And the more that you can have the conversation that's going on in your client's head, the more successful, the more of a connection, the more of a right relationship and business that will be, okay? So let's look at some of the language in this industry that has been used to attract the right type of buyer. Exceeding expectations, we all know that one, right? Unique venue, a leading DMC or production company. A memorable experience. I think that's the most overused expression in the industry. Ideal venue. Convenient or great location. Yes, I hear that a lot. But if you're using that, I feel you are selling yourself short. What is it about that convenient or great location that is going to help an organizer to run a successful event? Is it going to help to get more people to their event? If so, that's a lot more interesting to them than talking about a convenient or great location. Okay, and if you go on any website around the world, you will see these. And this is commoditization. This is not going to help you to stand out. So we want to really elevate ourselves in the conversation to be at partnership level with our customers, with the right type of clients for your business, rather than being seen as a supplier. And when the conversation is, when you're seen as a supplier, the conversation can tend to be all about rate, and we want to avoid that, okay? So Alnara won business worth 100,000. Why? Because she changed how she was speaking. She changed her tone of voice. She changed what she was saying about her hotel. And this was in 2021. She was the hero of the hotel when she won this business in 2021. And it's really about getting a yes at each step of the client's decision-making journey, because they are on a journey. It started way before they engaged with you. Their conversations have been going on from the board level, trickling throughout their organisation, and they've decided that an event is a solution to a problem that they have in their business. And they are looking for the right partners to help them to fix this problem, to help them to perhaps foster greater connections in their company, to help them to grow their revenue, to help them to be seen as a leader within their industry. There's multiple different reasons for organising events, and we want to get to the heart of that and have that conversation. And that's where I help people in the second step. It's changing the conversation and asking killer questions, as I call them. But it's really about developing a natural curiosity and an interest in the client. So we have lots of opportunities to do that today. So that's step 2 of my Steps to Win process. And a big part of asking questions is really listening and fine-tuning your listening skills. And the art of listening is not to hear what someone is saying, but to really see how they're feeling. How are they feeling? Where is that emotional connection? What's really, really important to them? And that's going to help you to connect. And you may find sometimes in conversation, you're asking a question, but then you're listening, but you're really listening to reply, right? What will I say next? Instead, we must try and fine-tune our brain that's full of distractions to really listen, to understand. What am I hearing? What's their tone of voice telling me? What are all the different signals telling me, okay? And this, I feel we really need to stop doing, is having that dates, rates, and space conversation. Everybody's doing it. How many people is it for? Is the destination confirmed? That type of thing. What are your dates? When I was a venue finder, so many hotels had this conversation with me, and it really didn't help to make a connection with me, to find out what was important to me as a venue finder and what was important to the end client. And I share a conversation frame, and it's not a script, it's never a script, it has to feel natural, but it's a guide to help you to lead a conversation. Because when you're in sales, you have to be leading that conversation. So how do we open up the conversation and gently take control? How do we then really fill in the gap? Asking these questions: where is the client now? How better off do they want to be after you've done work with them? What is the end goal of this event? And then, yes, you need to share your solutions. But some salespeople start with that. But that's the third part. We have to control ourselves, ask great questions, listen, and then be able to match. This is what I heard you say. This is why I'm suggesting this. This would be the right thing for you. And of course, knowing what your next steps are with the client. Conversations create cash, conversations create connection, and conversations create community. And the third part of this then is proposals that win. What can we really do in order to write a proposal that shows that you listened, that shows that you care? When I was a venue finder, so many proposals were sent to me. I reviewed thousands, and I knew that just the dates and the rates were changed, and my name, of course, and everything else just was really generic. And there's a lot of generic proposals being sent. So how can we personalize a proposal to make it stand out and to help get you to the top 5% of destinations or venues or service providers that are being considered for this business? And this is another picture of my dad and my brothers. And he was making a candelabra here for the Pope's visit to Ireland in 1979. And my dad is a 9th generation stone cutter. And when he started in the business at age 15, his favourite job was to sharpen the tools rather. So there was a big fire pit every morning, and he'd put the chisel. So this here is a chisel, right? And that was really what helped him to carve the intricate delicacies that he was doing with the stone. And he had to heat up the chisels to the right temperature, take them out, temper them, and then sharpen them at just that right temperature to make sure that they were good enough for the stonemasons, the craftsmen, to do their work that day. But it made me think, how often do we sharpen our sales tools? How often do we change the way that we are doing things? How often are we really carving out something that the client feels is right for them? Now, as a buyer, internally, you're doing a lot of sales also, right? You want to make sure that you're getting the budget for your events. You want to make sure that you're getting the write-off, that you feel it in your heart that a certain destination is right, and you perhaps need to sell that internally. Or maybe you want to do something very different this year, and some stakeholders might be a little hesitant. So everybody has to sell something. And how often are we really changing the tools that we are using to do that? And of course, a proposal and your presentation is a very important way to do that. And so that's step 3. And proposals, they need to be all about a client, right? A lot of proposals tend to be all about what you're selling. But the art really is to change that around, to turn it on its head and make a proposal all about the client. And how personalised are they, to really make sure that the client feels this was designed for them. This was written for them. And put a bit of passion in there, right? If the client doesn't feel that you're passionate about what you are selling, why should they be? Because they have to go and they have to sell you to someone else. They have to go to another meeting, to an internal meeting that you will never be invited to. And they have to be your advocate. So they got to feel that passion that's coming from you, that hunger that's coming from you, that genuine interest that's coming from you in order to make sure that you're the right partner that's going to help them to deliver the event as planned, and very importantly, to get the outcomes as planned. And is Corinne in the room? I was speaking with Corinne last night on the boat, and she organises these amazing incentive trips from the Netherlands. And she said that I asked her, how does she know it was a success? And she said, well, at the airport, when they're leaving Schiphol Airport, everybody's friendly and they're nice and they're saying hello, but, they're being polite. She said, when they come back, after the incentive trip, everybody's friendly and they're smiling and they're hugging and, everybody's best buddies all of a sudden. And she said, that's when I know it was a success. And then, of course, the stakeholders are looking, well, is sales going up? Are the connection within the team, is the camaraderie there? Is the team building? That really, really worked? And that is going to have a ripple effect throughout the industry. So many incentive trips are designed to help keep people loyal to the company, whether it's the employees or the clients, right? And they're looking at those. They're looking at those as measures of success. And the first paragraph of a proposal is the most important. Why? Because that's the part that they're probably going to read the most. You have to grab their attention. Most proposals that I've read out of a few thousand, the first paragraph is all about the business, your business, whereas you have to turn that around and make it about the client. And of course, if you had a conversation with the client, it's based on that conversation, okay? So I want you to just take a minute, perhaps, and think through your sales process. Think through how you are doing things within your business, and ask yourself, what would you give you out of 10 in these 3 areas, right? In terms of how much do you stand out? How do you sound different? What killer questions are you asking? Are you really changing up the conversation? Or is it a lot of dates and rates and space conversations? When you think of on an everyday basis, all the leads that are coming into your business, how many phone calls are being generated from that? How many conversations and opportunities to connect with the client are really being generated from that? And give yourself a mark out of 10. And then proposals. How are they personalized? How well are they really designed and created for that client? And how well do they reflect how well you listened and the answers that you got to these killer questions? Okay? I'll just give you a minute to think about that. Has anybody got some areas that they want to do some work on? Yeah? I'm seeing some nods. Yeah? Okay, mighty. So as a gift to you for being a fabulous audience, if I'm here until about 1:30 today, and so I invite you, if you want to have a conversation with me, I'm here, or you can set up a meeting afterwards to meet online. Okay, I'm happy to have a strategic conversation with you about your business. But most importantly, what I'm curious about is, what are you going to do different? Is there one area that you're going to take from the last 40 minutes of our lives together that you're going to do different as a result? And if you perhaps can write it down or just make a mental note somewhere as to what that is. Is there an idea that stood out to you? Is there something you want to go back and action when you get back to the office? Okay? And if someone wanted to share that with me, that would be wonderful too. Okay? Does anybody want to share an idea? Does anybody want to share something they're going to take from today? Because when you hear yourself say it out loud, it helps with implementation. It helps with your real conviction to do something different. Anybody going to do something? Anybody take an idea? Anybody agree with what I'm saying? Anybody want to challenge it? Say no, don't agree? Let's have a conversation. Anybody? You going to leave me hanging? You going to leave me? Nobody's going to say anything? Come on. Huh?
My adult.
What? I heard something? No? Okay, everybody's a bit shy. That's fine. As long as that you're taking something, I want to make sure it was productive use of your day. But to note it, to write it down, to make a mental note, say, you know what, I'm going to go back and I'm going to have that conversation within our company. Okay? So let me leave you with this. I bring you back to my parents again. So they're married 56 years. And a number of years ago, my dad retired. And my mom was a very typical Irish housewife and mother. We had the gift of her staying at home and rearing five of us, right? So she was always there. And for 56 years, my mother made all of the bed, right? And I walked into the kitchen one day and my mom said, Ciara, come here, look at this. And she walked me into their bedroom. She says, this is your father's contribution to retirement. He made his half of the bed. And my mother was exasperated, right? And my father came in shortly after. He said, Dad, come here. And I brought him in. I said, what's this about, Dad? And he said, yeah, I decided to help your mother out a little bit more now that I'm retired. I made my half of the bed. I said, Dad, Mom's been making the whole thing for 56 years. Could you not walk to the other side of the bed and make that side of the bed? And he said, I suppose I could. I'll do that tomorrow. So, but my point is, as sellers, we can be a little bit like my dad, and we're thinking that we're doing the right thing. We're thinking that we've nailed it. And yes, you're successful in business, but we want to make sure that you're creating long-lasting, fabulous relationships with your clients. So sometimes we're like my dad and we're thinking, yeah, I've done the right thing. I've made my half of the bed. But the buyer is like my mother, and they're over here frustrated, and they're thinking, no, that's not my idea of partnership. They need something more. So thank you very much for your time. It's been an honor to be here. And if we can have a conversation afterwards, that's mighty too. Thank you very much.